Hello and welcome to today's webinar looking at how to get switched on for the switch off. I'm Charlotte, editor of Comms Business, and today I'm joined by Nick Tiddy, Head of Business Development, Mark Howarth, Head of Trading and Partner Experience, and Andrew Sale, Broadband Portfolio Manager, all from Zen. They will walk you through the reality that the Great British Switch Off has already begun. And as you're here, if you're not prepared, then now is the time to get ready before it's too late. There will be time for questions at the end, so we do want to hear thoughts from you at home or in the office, and do add those into the Q&A panel that you'll find on the right-hand side of your screen, and we'll get to as many questions as we can at the end. But for now, over to you three.
Thanks, Charlotte, and good morning, everybody. Welcome to Zen HQ here in Rochdale. It's a sunny morning in North Manchester. Charlotte's introduced Mark and Andy. I'm going to be hosting this morning, fielding some questions to the guys. But just a little introduction to Zen. So for those that aren't aware, Zen are about 25 years old now. We're an internet service provider. Lots of experience delivering broadband. We were involved in the first fibre trials with Openreach back in 2009. And in parallel to that, we've been unbundling exchanges across the UK since that time. And in the next few months, what we'll find is we'll be in a position where approximately 85% of our customers will be on net. And that does a couple of things. One, it gives us the ability to manage costs. But importantly, it means we can actually manage service and our reputation that the business has been built upon. In fact, we're the only recommended which provider in the UK, something we're extremely proud of. So from that baseline, it provides a kind of service benchmark for us to roll out services across our entire division, including the partner channel in which we sit, which is an ever-growing part of our business. So without further ado, let me get into the questions. Got a couple here for Andy to start with. So Andy, so you'd have to be kind of under a rock to have not heard about the switch off. But let's start with the basics. Can you sum up the switch off for me?
Yeah, so the switch off, the PSDN switch off. So this is BT Group's switch off of the public switch telephone network. So back in, I think it was 2018 now, BT started consulting on the switch off and their plans on how to switch off the network. And it's all part of their plans to transition to an all IP network. The switch off basically means that the traditional copper-based phone lines across the UK will be phased out over the next few years, and by the end of 2025, the plan is that it's being turned off, it's been decommissioned, or it's in the process of being decommissioned, but the services are no longer running across the network.
Okay, and at the same time as that PSDN switch off, the WLR network is being closed. Just clear up the kind of difference between those two things and obviously how they relate.
Yeah, really good question. And really, it's two sides of the same coin. The PSDN network is BT Group's telephone network, and WLR is an Openreach product, so the wholesale line rental. So it's the Openreach being the network operator part of BT. It's their product that allows us as service providers to buy access to the PSDN network through renting a wholesale line, and to sell phone lines to our customers. It's the phone line product that we've got up and down the country. It's the product that allows Zen and anyone else to sell a phone line on BT's network. And as part of that PSDN network switch off, obviously the wholesale access, the wholesale product accessing that network needs to go away as well. So Openreach are closing down the WLR network and the WLR product over the same sort of time period. So by the end of 2025, WLR will have gone away, and that includes those single lines that you might have at your home, includes ISDN lines that you might have in your office or your customers' offices. All of that goes away, and it means that as an industry, we need to transition to using different technologies. So voice isn't going away. We all make calls. We might make less calls than we did a few years ago. But businesses, every business still needs some kind of voice some way of being able to call them, be able to speak to them, to be able to, whether that's to place an order, to get some support, to ask some questions. And so in order to, we need to transition to the voice over IP, to hosted communications, to UC, and all of that is being accelerated thanks to the WLR switch off, the PSDN switch off, and particularly over the last couple of years, the pandemic obviously accelerated that as well. So all of these things together form part of the PSTN switch off and the WLR network.
Okay, thank you. Lots going on. So preparedness is very much the kind of watchword for for this morning. But is the kind of the word that we would kind of try and express to businesses across the UK, people using those networks. What are the steps that OpenReach are taking? What are the things that businesses need to be aware of?
Yeah, so I think I mentioned it was 2018 that the plans to switch the network were announced, and over the intervening years between 2025 and then, there are a number of steps that OpenReach BT Group have put in place. So number one was making sure there's replacement products in place. So FTTP, as you mentioned, been around since before that, but it's been accelerated and the coverage is increasing dramatically every single week. It's in the region of 65,000 premises a week are being enabled by OpenReach at the moment for FTTP. So think about it, that's like a large town or a couple of average sized towns being enabled for FTTP every week. And when you put it in that sort of context, you think, wow, that's pretty impressive. Sagia being another product. So Sagia is the replacement for FTTC. So WLR goes away, FTTC sits on the top of WLR. So we are all used to buying a phone line and putting our broadband on the top. If that phone lines have gone away, that broadband's disappears as well. So Sagia is the replacement for FTTC, and that'll be the product that you would use where FTTP is not available. So that was step one. Make sure we've got alternative access products in place. Step two is stop selling the old products. So stop selling WLR. The national stop sell. So September this year, OpenReach will stop selling WLR nationwide. You just won't be able to order it anymore. But there are large parts of the country already where you can't order WLR. So you think the first couple of areas where Salisbury and Mildenhall, well, it's a couple of years now that you've not been able to buy WLR in those areas. But every sort of 3 months since then, OpenReach have been announcing more and more areas where they've got significant FTTP coverage and they've stopped selling WLR as a result. So there's literally millions of premises across the UK already where you cannot order WLR, and that means you can't switch it between providers. You can't add services onto the top of that WLR. And so there's already millions of addresses where Sagia or FTTP are really the only options.
Okay, thanks, Andy. What about the OpenReach? What about OpenReach? We've talked about, what about altnets in that mix? So obviously they're playing a large part in the mix. Tell me a little bit about what you see in the market from the altnets.
Yeah, great. So yeah, PSDN WLR switch off. It's a OpenReach BT thing, but altnets, as in alternative network providers, these are the guys that are not OpenReach. So traditionally, the UK has been dominated by two network providers for quite a number of years now, being OpenReach and Virgin Media, and then we've got altnets added into the mix. So you think the likes of City Fibre or Hyper Optic or any other of the dozens of them that are out there, and these are guys are operating networks more often than not fiber optic networks, but there are guys that are doing fixed wireless, there's satellite providers. These are all, I guess you could put into the altnet basket. And they're incredibly important to the overall market because, one, they've added in desperately needed competition. And that's encouraged the likes of OpenReach to accelerate their own FTTP plans. They're forcing us all across the whole industry to be more innovative. The more competition, we've got to do things better, whether that's thinking of new ways of monetizing products or charging for services or new functionality or being more creative when it comes to service levels. But we've all been forced to be more creative, to be more innovative with our products. And that's very large part down to the altnets, basically putting some much needed disruption into the market.
Okay, thanks, Andy. Yeah, it's an interesting time we live in, certainly in the industry. Mark, question for yourself. Talking about the withdrawal, you've also been talking in the press recently about beating inertia in context of this shutdown. What do you mean by that, and what do you make of the delays at Salisbury and Mildenhall that Andy referenced?
Yeah, I mean, I think when I talked in the press around inertia and around this topic, I think in the main it's slow, it's static. There's a number of reasons for that. I think ultimately the switch off is a problem created by our industry, and that's why we're talking about it. But I think it poses challenges and issues for businesses at a time where it's cost of living crisis. Businesses are under pressure. I spoke recently at an event about a bakery not too far from here where they've been open since 1890 something. Why do they care about this realistic for their business? They're fighting to keep their business open and alive and pay their employees. And then you've got their telecommunications provider ringing them and speaking to them saying, "Oh, we need to move you to full fibre." Realistically, do businesses at this point, at this juncture, with the challenges that we're facing in the economy, do they care? And I think that's where the place for providers like Zen and other ones out there is about taking responsibility and being able to really signpost the what Andy's talked about there in regards to this journey has started. And I sort of joked earlier before we started this around how many more sessions will we have to do to talk about this before people sort of open it up. When you talk about the delays, I think delays is an odd word to use for both Mildenhall and Salisbury because they are happening. They have been slightly delayed, I agree, and I've been quite sort of forthright in my views that actually the decision now taken to degrade the service probably is a better experience for the customers rather than just having that sort of that dead final cut off. But yeah, I think those two towns are the flag which says we're sticking this in the ground in 2023. It's happening, and then the year 2024 and onwards, I think these challenges will continue to arise. But as an industry, we need to be mindful that this is not a priority for businesses right now, and we need to be mindful of the challenges that they face and be able to signpost what we can do to make their service better and enable them to get on board with this.
Can I just build on what Mark was saying there and about taking responsibility? I think as service providers, Mark is absolutely right. It's our responsibility to help the likes of that bakery that Mark was talking about there understand the opportunity that it creates for them. So I already spoken about sort of innovation and that's for us as service providers, but it also creates opportunities across the whole of the UK, across the whole of the economy to be able to do things that weren't possible before. Now, they may only be small incremental things, but they, as a service providers or as an industry, telecoms industry, we are collectively sort of putting this onto small businesses across the UK. And I think as part of that, we need to, in order to make it a success, we need to explain to them sort of why this is important and why it's good for them, where the opportunities are, rather than it being a burden for them. It's an opportunity for them, and I think will help build the momentum that's needed, and that's right through the spectrum. So that's for Zen as a wholesale service provider. We need to help our customers, our service provider customers, understand what the opportunities are for them and how they can grow their business off the back of this. And as a direct provider and service provider customers, for them to explain to their customers or identify the opportunities for their customers. So I think as an industry, we could go, Openreach, you've just made this really hard work for us. Why have you done that? Or we could go, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity for the telecoms industry in the UK. How can we make the most of the opportunity to grow our own businesses and grow the UK economy as a whole?
Yeah, and I think you're right, Mark. The word delay on the pilot is a little bit unfair. It's a multifaceted kind of program. I think it gives us a stepping stone. I know it's about driving communication to the service providers. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's still a number, I guess, of parts of the industry that may be aware it's going on, but are not engaged. They maybe don't believe it's going to happen. And I think we've got a collective responsibility again to try and to rectify that. And I think when it comes to the people that say, "Oh, this is never going to happen. Why am I even bothered?" Well, they might be right. It might not happen on time. But I guess it's, are you willing to bet your business on it? Do you want to be? Would you rather, at the end of 2025, turn around and say, "Told you so, but I've done it anyway," or do you want to go, "Oh, blooming heck, it did happen, and I wasn't ready, and now I'm in trouble"? So do you want to be at the forefront leading, or do you want to be trying to catch up desperately and trying to, I guess, think about how you can protect your business, or do you want to grow your business?
Yes, wrestling control, I suppose, in this situation. Yeah, both from a business perspective and for certainly in our partner division, our partners that we support, empowering their customers, or rather empowering a process and putting steps in place that gives that control. Because this will happen. It's not a question of if.
I mean, Andy said there, about it happening. I mean, standing up at events for the last 18 months and putting my name against it, saying 2025 is definitely happening. I hope if Clive's watching this, it does happen, because I'm knocking on his door if it don't.
Okay, guys. So just moving on slightly, Andy's already touched on the Sagia FTTP products, but voice is obviously a really important part of this. It's critical that IP voice services are there in the market. Obviously, there is plenty of options already there. That the hosted voice market has been growing for years, but it's kind of really come to the fore now. A question for you, Mark, with your trading hat on, are you seeing within Zen sales of IP endpoints accelerating as we approach these kind of milestones?
Yeah, I would say probably in the last sort of 12 to 18 months, especially in our consumer area, sat behind us today in the office, that has ramped up. And that's mainly because it's a product which is our own, which we get behind. It's our infrastructure. And we've been quick to market, to deploy it, and to talk about it. But it's around the connectivity, being the enabler for that. And this is the whole point of that, is having a connectivity product which is strong and with a strong reputation. It makes that IP conversation a little bit easier. That sort of the cross and upsell of IP services. I'd say the rate of adoption within our consumer area has been probably the fastest rate. Andy, I think you'd agree. In partner, we've got the product, so we've got a cloud comms product which we're talking to our partners about and encouraging them to take. But the adoption of it, it's not a like for like replacement, because a lot of people, aren't using the phone. And said before, people are making calls, but 9 times out of 10, if someone's house phone rings, I think the first reaction is, "Well, who's that?" If people are using mobiles now, so it is more in that, probably in the business space as well, the small, the SME area, where I think their phone lines are needed. And also it's around retention of number, the numbers they've had for years. The questions we're getting now is, well, can we retain that number, and how does that work, and what that process looks like? Going back to my point before on the bakery, it's about making that easy for them. So having the product is great, but the adoption of it, people need to understand what it is and make it easy, in the education around that.
And are our partners embracing that urgency, do you think? Is that a concern you at all?
I mean, with the trading hat on, we're looking at the mix. So the mix that we're seeing now is a high percentage, in the very late 80s, early 90s, of what we'd class as strategic products being taken. But that's because we've taken action on that as well. So, Andy spoke about the stop sell in regards to the industry. We brought our own stop sell sort of in, didn't we, Andy, in regards to being FTTP first. So where FTTP is available within our partner portal, that is the product which we sort of push you down. And then if that's not available, obviously it's Sagia, and then further down FTTC and ADSL. So that is driving that number and the increased number. Are our partners bought in? We've had partner events, we're having discussions with them. We've got our account management team and our partner experience team. We are seeing now a lot of migrations from non-strategic to strategic products. It's around, I think, it's the role Zen play, which I think we're going to come on to a little bit later on, but we need to be able to educate our partners and give them, put the data, which is readily available from OpenReach, and we get a report every week, don't we, around where the availability is, and putting that in the partners' hands.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It's about helping our partners understand what's going on, providing them with the information they need in order to do something about it, helping them, supporting them when it comes to how do you take that to your customers from a marketing perspective, communications perspective, and they certainly have seen it on the migrations and the orders that we're getting in from customers. And just in the last month or couple of months, we've seen that we've got more FTTP and Sagia in our partner base than we have any other product. Like it's like far more than FTTC or ADSL now, and that's down to sort of partners making the strategic decision to order Sagia or FTTP where it's available, rather than just keep doing what they've always done. They've and that's, I guess that's from it's ultimately down to them, and hopefully we've helped them in making that decision.
Okay, thank you. Sticking on the subject of, kind of voice, I suppose, but on the analog side of things, a question we get asked quite a bit, and I'm sure would be asked if I didn't ask you guys in advance, try and get ahead of that, is around solutions that rely on analog services, alarms, lifts are the obvious examples. Is the market moving to address these challenges, or do we have to accept that that's just something we have to live with in this kind of transitional phase? What's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, an answer that I could bat straight back is it's if you take lift lines, for example, it's their responsibility, right? And I think OpenReach have been quite strong in that message to say, if you're in that industry, what technology are you going to embrace and take? And that's a straight answer I can give. A broader answer is, what are you doing in regards to relationships you might have? So, do you have a replacement product? Yes or no? And then if you haven't, then it's about partnering up with someone that has got something like that. It could be using 4G SIMs, for example, in lift lines. But I think, ultimately, there is a number of elements where the replacement service might not sit within your portfolio. So, we'll come ask Andy as a portfolio manager in a minute, but you either acquire that capability or you build it yourself. And I think that's where Zen has looked at it and said, well, are we in that space? Yes or no? And what do we need to do differently, and have a plan for it? And then educate our partners around what products and services we've got, either with us or with a third-party supplier.
Yeah, absolutely. You're quite right. I guess it's ultimately those individual industries' responsibility to, but we've got a responsibility to help them. OpenReach certainly have, and OpenReach have been doing a lot of engagement with the different industry sectors and their sort of industry bodies, whether that's the security industry or lift line industry, or whether that's the health industry in terms of health pendants and alarm lines for vulnerable people, and testing them. And we've been working with OpenReach. They have a lab in London where Zen lines and lots of lines from other CPs are in there, where those industries can come along and test their products. So they can, if the lift line operators can go along and say, does a lift alarm system work with Zen's lines? Does it work with BT's lines? Does it work with Toto's lines? Whoever, but across the board, and we can do that. And we can help service providers and help the channel. Maybe you're not in that lab, but we can help them replicate that. So if you're working in an industry where you do put lift lines in, they've got a range of different options. It could be 4G, it could be VoIP, and then it's, well, what do we need if we are going to do it via VoIP or 4G? How do we ensure the power supply's there? What's UPS requirements? How do we make sure the the hardware that we've got that supports the necessary tones that so that the signaling can work properly. And how do we test that? How do we get it into them? And that's the kind of thing we've been doing with our partners. And and I guess that's, as an industry, we need to continue to do that over the next few years to make sure the UK is ready.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about what OpenReach, the altnets, some of the challenges, the unavoidable future, the reality of what's going on with the switch off. Let's talk about customer conversations we've been having. So, general question, maybe start with you, Mark. How have you been talking to partners? What advice have you been giving them about getting started or building momentum into that kind of journey, that strategy that they've got to put in place?
Yeah, I mean, it's around, I think the main word I've used this morning has been education or enablement, any of those terms. It's around, does the partner understand that this is happening? I talked about signposting the different dates that are there as well. And are they set up in regards to the services that they take? I briefly touched on it earlier around the data. So the data that's available, readily available around where exchanges have got FTTP, SAGIA, and so on and so forth, and making that readily available. In regards to availability checks, we've got an account management team, we've got partner experience team here at Zen, and making it really clear and obvious to them around when they can move their services, because ultimately our partners are trying to run a business. So I think from our perspective, we've invested in a partner enablement lead as well, around educating when you can do searches, how often you can do searches, what tools are available. We've got our campaign center as well, which has got open information. We upload the availability check within there. It's about putting the information, the tools in the partner's hands. And I think they're responding. The numbers state that within the migration. Numbers that we're seeing, people moving from those non-strategic to strategic products as we talk about. But I think it's about an opportunity around getting the partner to recognise, and it's something that we're looking at as Zen as well, is around this opportunity. And Andy spoke about it earlier. If you're not moving your customers, so business or consumer customers, to FTTP, someone else will. And that's the reality of it. And then when you're having that conversation, through the supply chain, it's around what other services can you then sell on top of that, which makes this, sticky. So is that IP telephony, is it security, whatever that might be. But this is, Andy talked about it being once in a lifetime sort of event. Probably would agree. I mean, I don't know where we go from FTTP to, wherever. But it's about making your customer relationship sticky now and doing the right thing now between now and 2025. That's the messaging that we've been given. And again, we talked about it being a challenge. It's about making the information simple to understand and easy to access, and process it through there.
Yeah, and I guess it's about helping this become business as usual. I think this is a multi-year project. If we need to treat it as sort of business as usual, transitioning our customers, we can't just leave our customers until 2025 because there's just not enough time. It's only 1 year. You can't physically fit it all in with all the engineering work and that side of things. So it needs to be a gradual thing over the next few years. That's what we're saying. If we don't switch customers now, somebody else will come along and steal them. We see it as the number one sort of factor in initiating a customer to do something about switching. So FTTP, when it becomes available and customers know it's available, they want it. That's because it's faster, it's more reliable. They might have heard things in the news about the government's gigabit projects and enabling the UK for full fibre, and they want to be part of it. And we see it whether it's the consumer market, the B2B market. When FTTP comes available, customers are more likely to take some action than not. So that might be upgrade with you, or it might be upgrade with someone else. And when you put altnets into that mix as well, who obviously got they're building networks and they need to fill those networks up quickly, otherwise their investors are not going to be happy. So they're being very, very aggressive on recruiting new customers, and those customers that they're trying to sign up, if they've gone past your customer, they want to. So if you don't get upgrade, then they will. And so absolutely. So it's about becoming making business as usual. Get your customers converted as soon as possible. It's about protecting your business, creating new opportunities for your business, and allowing you to that sort of, maybe you've got some project resource in your company, but allow that to focus on something else, whether that's creating new products for you, whether that's worrying about all the other regulation that's happening in the industry. If you think about things like one-touch switching, or yesterday the government was talking about new digital consumer rights and new regulations that would impact business and consumer in the digital sector. And so you're going to have lots of other things to worry about. So make the switch off and transitioning your customers just part of your BAU processes.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this probably webinar is an expression of the consistency of message. We're not talking about anything particularly new. A lot of people will probably in the audience will be thinking, well, I've heard a lot of this stuff before, but it's not changed and it's not going to change. This has got to be a consistent, ongoing message, which we're trying to just volumize, I guess, as our role as a CP. Any particular feedback, Mark? Are you confident that our kind of partners are embracing this? Is there anything more to add to that? A message to the audience to encourage them to kind of take action? What are your confidence levels like at the moment?
My confidence levels are, I think, I can't talk about inertia and then say, we're hurtling towards it at a rate of knots. I think the rest of this year, so the rest of 2023 and into 2024, I think, with the different towns and cities which are going through their own switch off, I think September being a key date as well, I think these are just natural lines in the sand where as you accelerate closer to it, I think therefore adoption will increase. I think there is green shoots there that your partners are taking note, the industry's taking note, and we are seeing increased numbers. I think if there's a word of advice, at this moment in time to the audience is, if you don't have a plan and, you're not starting this process, then I think Andy touched on it. If you take the amount of days between now and 2025, so 365 plus whatever's left this year.
Do you maths, Matt?
Oh no, I'm not Carol Vorderman. What I would say is look at the amount of customers you've got, and then divide by how many days are left, and then how much of that heavy lifting you're going to have to do between now and then. And are you comfortable you've got enough time with all of the business priorities that you've got on your plate in order to get the heavy lifting done between now and then? And then secondly, and I know we spoke about circuits and numbers of circuits and volumes and stuff like that, but there's a customer at the end of the day. And I think don't forget that. That is where I think there's an opportunity there as well.
Yeah, I was going to come on to that actually. Perfectly timed. Obviously, one of your hats within Zen Partner is partner experience or customer service, if you want to address it that way.
Yeah.
So deadlines approaching, product sets in place. It strikes me as a compelling reason to act, to that kind of opportunity to to offer a consultative approach to guiding our partners through this process. Do you agree? Do you see it as another opportunity to crack on?
Yeah, I mean, the opportunity here in regards to commercial and stuff like that is one where we've had that discussion previously, but the opportunity where I don't think it's been discussed is around the opportunity to deliver a great service. So as we were saying before, it being a once in a lifetime opportunity, it is if you get it right. So if you've got the right processes in place, the right communication methods, your people are bought into what's happening, then if you've got a clear delivery path to deliver FTTP or IP telephony, then do it really, really well. Because if you do it really, really well, then people are drawn to that. It's, as I said before, do businesses want to do this? Is it their priority? No. If you make it really simple, straightforward to A, understand what's going on, B, what's going to happen, then I think that's where I think the opportunity lies. I think early in this, the feedback you asked feedback earlier is just understanding the installation process. So is it a 1 or 2 visits? What's going to happen on the day? What kit do I need to put in there? It's about having the opportunity to deliver a really, really good service to make that relationship you have in the supply chain really, really sticky. And that's something that I'm definitely pushing within my role with the partner experience team as well, around having smaller feedback loops. So that's something that I spoke about before. When you're doing these types of installations or migrations, we should be looking at the quality of the engineer going out and working with industry to say, okay, well, what's good, bad, or indifferent about that process? How are customers kept up to speed when the installation is going to be? Is it going to be an AM or a PM appointment? Why is there certain times? Why do I need to change my kit out? It's about education within the channel to our partners, but also educating the end user as well. Andy, I don't know if you agree or.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And if you get the basics done very, very well, communicate to your customers, take them through the process, the rest follows. So is all, no point overcomplicating it. So walk before you can run. Customers, it often overlooked, but in our experience, customers appreciate the small things as much as the large things, the big gestures. It's just if you can do something well, the basics well, then the customer will be grateful. They will be happy. They will reward you with their loyalty as a result.
Yeah, I suppose it's about that kind of shared responsibility in this, isn't it? We talked about OpenReach, talked about altnets, then we've got providers like ourselves, our partners, the end user. We've all got to take a part in that kind of in that communication of like say the fine detail, as well as this kind of big strategic picture that we've talked about at the top. Okay. Last couple of questions, I guess. Andy, where are you seeing most success in our channel? Which partners are really grasping this, and what are they doing? What are the behaviours that you're seeing that perhaps are very replicable for the audience, our partners, etc.?
Wow. Great question on this one. I guess I think from my perspective, the partners that are having the most success are the ones that are that understand their customers and are engaged. I think if you understand your customer, what their needs are, how they operate, what challenges they've got, you can help them solve all those challenges, and you can explain to them how the switch off and the transition to all IP benefits them. And they're not just like token messages of more speed, you'll be able to do this. If you really, really understand who your customers are, you can then tailor that messaging, and you can personalize it, and you can make them feel like you understand them, because you do understand them, and it's not fake, and there's authenticity there. And I think it's the partners that are doing that that are having the most success.
Agree, Mark?
Yeah, I think the type of partners that we're speaking to and we've got within our base, I think there has openly been some sort of naysayers about 2025. So yeah, I think it's understanding your customer. I think Andy's spot on with that, but I think it's also around the belief in this as a process. That's where it starts. Really, is are you a believer? Yes or no? No, I'm just going to kick it down the road. Then they're the type of partners where we need to engage with them and embrace them and try and get to educate them about the stop sell. But what I've seen is partners who are switched on to this, understand why it is happening, and I think the key word Andy talked about as well was the engagement. They're the type of partners which we're seeing doing the right things for their customers.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you for your kind of concluding message in a minute. So just give you a second to think about that. yeah, we're going to try and draw this together. I'm hoping we've got some questions from the floor, as it were, that Charlotte's going to ask of the guys shortly. But yeah, the question about optimism, the future, the next 12 months, we've got obviously September, there's a stop sell, we've got 2025, the Christmas soon. Yeah, in conclusion, try and wrap that up for me. Confidence, the future, and yeah, what's
Yeah, absolutely, it's a very big year for the industry. We've got the WLR stop sell in September. I think in conclusion is that if you're not bought into what's going on, buying, see this as an opportunity, not a challenge, because in our view, it is. Make sure you engaged with your service providers like Zen, your wholesaler. Make sure you're engaged with your customers, and try and build this into your day-to-day sort of processes. The way you operate. This is it's going on for quite a few years. So if you can make it part of your day-to-day, it will be a lot less work for you overall.
So yeah, my final thoughts are supportive what Andy said there is confidence. I think, there are certain events that are happening between now and 2025, which will be those lines in the sand that I spoke about. Jokes apart, I think, keeping an eye on the industry and what's happening and what Openreach is saying at every juncture. There will be bumps in the road, no doubt, but I think it's around responsibility. And I think as an industry, as providers, we have a responsibility to ensure that everyone is educated on what is going on and support the supply chain throughout from Openreach downwards, and realistically look at this as an opportunity, as Andy said, not a challenge.
Okay, thanks guys. Well, that's round one. I've seen we've got some questions that have come through. So, Charlotte, I'll hand back to you. And yeah.
Lovely, thank you. Great insights there from both of you. So thanks for talking us through that. Everyone that's joined us at home, thanks for the questions that have come in so far. You guys have obviously been listening, and the questions have been coming in far and wide. There is still time to add some questions if anyone is sat there wanting to put something to these three. So do pop that into the Q&A panel when you can, and we'll ask as many as we can get to. So first up, the first question is from someone that says they operate in quite a niche sector and have a large estate of analog lines that fall into that non-standard analog applications bracket. Where should they start?
Not with me, I think is the answer to that. If one of you gentlemen would like to tackle that one.
So I think we'll probably cover it off between us, but I think the first step is it comes back to exactly what we're saying and understanding your customers. So obviously this person understands their customer and they understand they're in a niche segment and they've got specific needs. And I guess it's step one is, well, what are those needs from the products that you're using today? What are the components of those products? What are the features that you need to have going forward? And then think about, well, how can I replicate that? How can I transition that into an all IP world? Once you understand what they are, you can start to build up your product. And I would do that in collaboration with your customers. Everyone typically has some friendly customers they'll be up for doing this and they'll understand the need. And so working together. So that'd be my first point would be, understand the customer, understand the niche, work with the customers to develop the replacement product, and then give yourself enough time to test and introduce that in a controlled manner. So that might, it might be working with a partner that can help you fill those gaps. It might be developing it yourself in house. And obviously that's going to depend on those specific niche segments that the question for the person that's posed the question.
Yeah, I think I'm going to expand the question and put it back to you. So one of the points I think in that question, if I'm reading it right, is it could be based on around availability as well, Andy. So, areas where they've not built FTTP. I guess can we share some details around that? Around, will we get to the end of the road and say there was thousands of customers we never really got to the FTTP? What is the plan if the rollout in certain maybe remote areas that might be?
Yeah, exactly. So Openreach's plan on FTTP is to reach around 25 million over the next sort of 3 years. So that's 80% of the UK approximately. So yeah, there's 20% of the UK is not going to have FTTP in the next few years. I guess some of that 20% will be picked up by altnets as well. So it'll be a bit more than that. But yeah, there is going to be a segment for the UK. If we factor in Sajira as well, we're getting to well in advance of 90-something percent, 97%. So it still leaves a small chunk. So there is going to be a segment of the UK that needs something else. And Openreach in those areas have got an access product that they call Sotap, so which is a single order transitional access product. It's a bit of a mouthful. Openreach are not great at names. Anyone from Openreach watching, you need someone working on your product naming. But Sotap is there to give a similar functionality to WLR so that service providers can run ADSL over the top. So there will be an ADSL option available for the parts of the UK that don't have anything else. And then we've got 4G and 5G are going to factor in. And it might be that we've then got satellite. And so there are lots of different, but the UK is not going to roll forward 2025, 2026. The UK is not going to be an FTTP only nation. We're going to have a mixed economy of connectivity, and I guess that needs to be factored in those development plans. Does the solution that you've created for those niche industries, will it work across multiple different types of access? So FTTP, Sajia, Sotap, 4G, 5G, satellite, and that's one of the things that you'll need to think about depending on the industry and the customers and where they're located.
And the next question that's come in does touch on Sotap, as you mentioned there. But this kind of brings us back to kind of the timings that you two have talked through at various points. And this person is just wondering whether you know when Sotap is going to be available in locations where FTTP and Sajia might not be available.
So Sotap, for those that don't know, so Sotap being the product that will fill in the gaps, and it will only be available where FTTP or Sajia are not available. So to that last sort of tiny percentage, and that's effectively from the switch off. So from pretty much from September this year, that will be available. Now, obviously, that's Openreach making available. It's then down to the wholesalers or the communication providers that interconnect with Openreach on whether they want to develop products. So BT wholesale plans might be different to TalkTalk Businesses plans or TalkTalk Wholesales plans and so on. But it will be available. There won't be a gap where customers can't order connectivity to certain parts of the UK. It will be you can order straight through, and you'll just need to order different products from the switch off or from the stop sell in September.
Yeah, that makes sense. The next question is just going back to ADSL connections, and this person has customers that have those connections, and they're just wondering how will the switch off impact those customers?
Yeah, so I guess it goes back to the previous question a little bit in that FTTP is being rolled out across the UK. I think it's around 65,000 premises a week on average, the last time I checked. And a lot of the ADSL lines that we've got, or locations that can only get ADSL today, are very rural, or they are town centre locations. In town centres, a lot of exchange-only lines, so they don't go via a cabinet. So FTTC, Sajir aren't available. But I think the way in which Openreach are building their FTTP network means that a lot of those exchange-only lines they'll jump straight from ADSL to FTTP. So you don't need to have that interim step of going to FTTC like most people have done. So they'll just see a sort of a transformational change. There are a lot of customers that have ADSL. If we take Zen's base, for example, a lot of the customers that have ADSL with us today can already transition. And it's about engaging with them and making sure and being aware of the services that are available. And so you can transition your customers, and then it comes, the ones that are left, it comes down to, well, what else is there? Are there altnets? Is Virgin Media there? Is Sotap the right answer? Moving them straight to fixed wireless or 5G, is that so yeah, again, it comes back to depends on where they are and what is available, but ultimately they will need to transition from ADSL to something else. It's just which other thing.
Yeah, I think just to build on Andy's point there, this goes back to the point around data. So, if you look at how we're using the switch off and the migration projects we've got underway here at Zen, is we've looked at putting them into customers into sort of different groups based on what they've got today, what can they get, and when can they get it, and understanding that data. Also, a lot of it's to do with the CP, so the kit as well, and putting them into different groups, which is easiest for us to hit. So, not using a buzzword, but low hanging fruit, so to speak, and having the easier way of doing it. But it comes back to that data point. So they might only be able to get ADSL today, and that's the reason why they've got that connectivity. But the data is always being updated every single week around when the rollout is going to that particular area. So it's about using that and being able to plan, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's an ever-changing picture. So try and keep abreast of what's going on so that you can address the right customer at the right time.
Definitely, that makes sense. And the next question that we've had come in is asking, I guess they're saying that they have several accounts with Zen at the moment, but they're not a formal partner. What are the requirements for them to become a partner with you guys?
Nick, this is a question.
It is a question for me, this one. I can answer this one. So, play my part. Great, Zen customer already. We do have some criteria. There is, it's around the responsibilities. Obviously, in the channel, there's a shared cost of sale that's borne, discounted services, with an expectation around things like billing engines, first line support, things like that. The commercials are to be discussed, but we do have a very robust program, and I'd be delighted to go into that in a bit more detail, perhaps outside of this forum. If that individual wants to reach out to me directly, then obviously probably LinkedIn's a good place to start. But yeah, criteria as you'd expect. Nothing too formal, but we have a joint responsibility, and we'd love to take it to that next step. So yeah, thanks for the opportunity to do the sales pitch.
The next question is asking whether there's a checker that they can use that tells them where FTTP is available and where exchanges are known to have had those stop sell notices put in place. They've said that the BT wholesale checker isn't clear on this, but they're also not a Zen customer at the moment.
Yeah, I can probably pick this one up. So, so if you're already a Zen partner, then our portals will provide that information, and we can provide you with a raw data that sits behind it as well. If you're not a Zen partner, a good place to go to start with is openreach.com. So they have on there is a map in which you can put your postcode in, and it will identify the build program, where it is an Openreach program, whether they're building now, whether it's going to be soon. You can also download from openreach.com a list of the FTTP priority exchanges, so the areas in which the stop sell is kind of already in place. You can download a list of the areas that Openreach are building or plan to build. And so, openreach.com if you're not a Zen partner. If you're a Zen partner, you can get it in the portals and contact your account manager, and they'll talk you through it.
Lovely. The next question is going back to the bakery that was mentioned by you guys at this kind of towards the opening of this, and they're just wondering whether the bakery kind of understands the challenges that are required to the user equipment that they might have within their business, and whether kind of the potential cost and business impact could be something that would kind of make them see this as a business priority.
Yeah. So
If that makes sense.
yeah, no, that totally makes sense. So yeah, I mean, are they aware of the changes they need to make? Absolutely. And it is an interesting one because it's a friend of mine, and we were talking about it, and I used them as an example in another talk that I did, and actually it opened up a conversation around an opportunity around how they can sell wholesale. So they're a wholesale bakery as well, and they were saying they've considered more online ordering around how they then can take that into the production to say, okay, so how much flour do we need, or how much? I'm not a baker, so I'm just guessing they use flour. But the produce that they have to buy in their supply chain. So it's around, what is the demand from their customers, and then where they go within their supply chain to manage their costs. And that's something I've had discussions with them about. So they are fully aware that there is an opportunity here. But it was around the point I was trying to make was it's not their number one priority. But by opening that conversation with small businesses, it then does open it up to say, well, actually, we could do more online, or we could do more with payments in store, or whatever that might be. So it's about the conversation around the switch off did open that up for that particular bakery, which I'm happy to share the details with if you're ever in the Oldham and Rochdale area.
The next question is just going back to kind of the section where you guys talked through kind of the timings that people should expect in the rundown to 2025. And it's just asking whether you guys can see any slippage on those timelines.
So the first big milestone was a couple of years ago, which was Salisbury and Mildenhull and the stop sell going in place. That went in place, and we've seen stop sell impact additional exchanges over the last couple of years since then. So I don't see anything impacting the September stop sell. I think we will continue, that will continue as planned. We won't be able to order WLR. There will be exceptions, as there have been on the others. So this is the Openreach have got a formal exception policy around certain things they will accept on an individual line by line basis. So I think that will continue. Getting to 2025, my expectation is that at the end of 2025, they're going to turn stuff off. What we're seeing at the moment is Salisbury and Mildenhull have it's been 2 years. They've got to the point where they're switching it off. They initially said they were going to switch it off completely in April, and then sometimes it's sort of positioned as a delay, and they've backtracked. But I think what's really happened is that there was an opportunity that the trial is about testing things that will help the 2025 switch off happen on time. And there was an opportunity for us as an industry to test what happens if we apply a process that degrades a customer's service. So as we're approaching the switch off time, if we slow a customer service down, or we prevent them from making calls, does that encourage that customer to engage with the CP, or are those unengaged customers still unengaged? And what we're going through at the moment is really testing that, so that we can learn as much as possible from the two trial exchanges. So if this through the service degradation process that's about to kick in, if we learn that service degradation does indeed prompt customers to speak to their service provider, then we can consider applying that before the end of 2025. So we could go, as an industry, Openreach are going to turn things off in 2025. Us as individual CPs could can communicate a date to our customers. We might say that that is June 2025, and when it gets to June, we decide to apply our own service degradation process, so that customers don't just see a cliff edge and don't just drop off. So we told them June, they get to June, they've not just dropped off, we degrade their service, which prompts them to engage with us and go, yeah, I did know, you did tell me about this, and I just didn't do anything about it. Sorry, how can you help me out now, Zen? And I think that's the way to see it. And when we've been speaking with OpenReach about it, that's very much the way in which they pitch it. Is we want the two trial exchanges, they're there so that we can learn. We want to learn as much as possible. This is an opportunity for us to learn, and we can take that learning forward to ensure that the timeline does happen as expected, so that 2025 does happen.
Definitely. So I think the message people can take from you guys there is to just take the initiative, get a plan in place and start moving forward. Definitely. So that does unfortunately bring us to the end of today's webinar. Thanks so much to everyone at home for sharing so many questions with us. Sorry that we couldn't get to all of them, but we will be able to follow up with you guys later to get you the answers that you need. Thanks to Nick, Mark and Andy for sharing all of those insights with us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Lovely. And thanks to you guys at home for joining us. This will be available on demand, so do share that with friends or colleagues later. But otherwise, thanks guys and goodbye.